Welcome in, everybody, to the Bare Knuckle Recovery Podcast. As always, I'm Tommy Streeter, along with Nate Mollering. And as you can see, we have two new guests today. We've got Cody Knuckles and John Humphries from Cody and John Speak. So basically, Cody and John spend a lot of their time going into schools, doing motivational speaking, talking with the kids. They talk about fentanyl awareness a lot, and they're making a huge impact in their community. So we wanted to bring them in and give them the opportunity to share a little bit about who they are, why they do what they do, and how they started. So if you guys are ready, we'll just jump right into it.
Yep.
Yeah, so 2021, we got invited to speak at 5 local Wabash County high schools through a DCS program. And at that point, everything just kind of took off from there. We speak on fentanyl awareness and really the power of choices and decisions. A little bit for me, I speak on the power of choices and decisions a little bit more with my history and my background and the multiple years that I spent in prison. John comes on a lot in the back end with more of the fentanyl awareness and just the dangers that we're facing today as not only adults, but our youth.
What led up to that in 2021 of you two getting at, right? It was both of you. What led up to that moment where you got asked to come speak in those 5 schools?
I was at a drug court conference in Washington, D.C., and Julie Hobbs was there with us, and she had I was sitting at a table with some people, and they kind of asked me what my story was. So I gave my testimony and, talked about how I got sober and got custody of my daughters and all of that stuff. And I think that story had an impact on her. So they were doing this anti-drug coalition type of thing in the community, and she had got a hold of me. And me and Cody have, since he's got out of prison, basically worked together on projects. We kind of had somebody introduce us, and, anytime one of us went, the other one did. So it was like, yeah, I'm going to, they were like, do you have somebody to speak at one of the schools? I was like, I think I got somebody to speak with together at all of them if you would like for us to do that. And it we were in a meeting, and I think they were testing us out. So they asked us our stories, and maybe an audition. They didn't tell us that, but that's what it felt like. And that's kind of where, instead of us speaking separately, it was like we can actually speak together. So Cody can, talk about his experience with, one decision basically can change your whole life. And then on the back end, because they were concerned, it kind of worked out because they were concerned. We don't want all these kids to think that everybody that goes through this comes out on the other side and starts podcasts or becomes school teachers and stuff like that. So on the back end, with my experience and having lost a few people, but one young man that lived with us to an overdose, I just came on the back end and kind of told that story, and they loved it, and that's kind of how that got started.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about both you guys, your backgrounds and, your lived experience, which really qualified you guys to go speak to these kids. You mentioned a little bit, but just tell us a little about both your stories.
Yeah, so I battled drug addiction for just over 12 and a half years. Did a little over 11 years in prison. And during that time, some of the stuff that I seen and went through, just learned life experience, has been able to really translate. And I think what we've realized is the kids really appreciate somebody that has been there, not somebody per se with a degree or took some classes. We kind of just come in and we're raw, and we just truly give them our life stories. And we've got a ton of positive feedback on just the authenticity of it, and just us being real. And the kids really have been able to grab onto that and give them something to, a real picture has been painted that way. And I think it's really been a lot of success for us.
Yeah, my experience is I was in active addiction for 17 years. I think the first time I had a drink, I was addicted. And I think the first time I smoked weed, that's my personality. And I just lived sometimes out of cars, bad relationships, toxic, just toxic thief, all of those things. And at one point, I had 2 daughters, and I had to I think I was going through some spiritual stuff, but I know that I was like really hurting, and I was tired of myself, but I didn't really know what to do. And I had some friends that were getting a hold of me about faith stuff, the Bible, everything like that. And it was all silliness to me at the time. But when I had to move away from the girls, I was just so broken that I just called out to, a God I didn't believe in. It was like, I need something. I've tried everything. And, with that encounter, I just got sober and started living that life and just doing the next best thing that I could and stopped letting stuff get to me. It was like, I'm just going to live and do the best I can. And eventually I ended up getting custody of my daughters and getting my peer support certification, and telling people, anybody that would listen, I've basically told my story to. And that's kind of where we're at now, is still just trying to share the message, whatever it looks like. It's a little different in schools than it would be in like a church, but there's just, me and Cody had a conversation before all this started, because we get invites to talk at places, but it was like, what would it be like, this is before any of it happened, to get to the youth, dealing with the grown-ups. You guys know this is hard. And we had that conversation. We're like, we don't know what it looks like. We're not youth pastors. We don't really have a field to get into to help. And then all that came about, and it's been, I think I'm speaking for both of us, just like it's been mind-blowing, but also so rewarding to deal with them either before or at that beginning stages of life, and all the challenges that they're about to face, with that type of stuff.
Yeah. So, you kind of alluded to something earlier, that the first time you had a drink, it was something you never experienced, right? I always tell people that first time I tried substances, I had like a semi-spiritual experience. I was like, oh, this is it.
Yeah.
This is the moment. So do you feel like your life changed from then on? You saw it go a different direction that you never intended it to go? Like it just kind of pulled you that way? And then also on the back of that, then is that kind of what you guys try to prepare kids for, and say, hey, look, if you try or you have tried it, it's probably going to feel good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it may be good times for a little bit, but it'll take you places you never meant to go.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anybody ever told me, like it was always that somebody would bring a pill,
right,
and they'd say, this is what this does, in an exciting way, in a good way.
Yeah.
But then when you try to get off of it, then they're like, oh, you can't do that. You're going to be on the toilet. There's nothing sexy about it anymore. Now it's, and it's like that when I went to the clinic, people be in line like, oh, this is so great. And then it's like, when you talk about getting it off, I go, oh, you cannot like stop this. So, and for me, I remember like having a drink. I remember that real clearly. And it was just like, I chose every bad thing possible after that. Anything that would switch up my mind. I didn't have a ton of trauma in my life. I was just trying to find my identity and who I was, and I fit in those places. But every time, the first time I tried acid, it was like, I got to do this all the time. That was just my personality. And I think with the youth that we're talking to, we do say that, but it's also like, it's not the same world.
Yep.
So everything that you do, and with some of I worked with CORE in Grant County, I still work with them, but we would do hospital responses. And there's teenagers in there thinking they took a half a Xanax and had to get Narcaned back to life. And I think communicating that with them, and we're not a scared straight program. I think we're just kind of like real about like anything you touch this weekend. And you may think that nobody cares, but people care, because we get so confused. I think that's one of the things with me when I was a kid. The people that I wanted to love me, or the people that I wanted to invite me to things, didn't. So I felt maybe like I wasn't loved, which is a lie. You're loved. It's just you're not getting it from those places. And a lot of these students, that's what they're going through. Mom may not be around, but grandma loves you. You have friends that love you. You're loved. And so for me, it's, it was an identity thing, probably some kind of an issue, but with the students, it's there's so much to communicate since the pandemic. Like I think that's why it's good both of us do it, because he can kind of dig into, we want them to know that the decisions that they make can, hold so much weight, but also you have a purpose. Because if I can show you that you have a purpose, and you need to protect that purpose and that vision, you are less likely to do the stuff like, some kids get a hold of us about, hey, I'm going to quit vaping. We never even talked about vaping. It's just like making all of the right decisions to get to that place once they believe they're valued.
Yeah, I think what I always try to convey to them is, and I'm sure the four of us could all relate to this, like none of us took our first drink or used our first drug or shot dope for the first time or whatever that looks like. None of us did that with the anticipation of being addicted. And what I really try to convey to the kids is like, there's not a moment where you look back for me that I'm like, that was the moment I became addicted. Like you'll look back and realize that your entire world has fell apart around you and you don't really know. I didn't know when or how or like what that looked like. But I'll speak to them on like, in the beginning we think it's fun and we're hanging out with our friends and it's something we do on the weekends. And before I knew it, it was every day and through the week. And none of us started with the anticipation of becoming an addict.
Right.
And I think that's the danger, especially with the drugs kids are facing today and adults the same. We use the word sometimes luxury. Like when we were in active addiction, we somewhat had the luxury of having to go above and beyond to overdose. Where today's youth or today's drugs in general, you don't have to take much of anything, and in a split decision or in a split moment, your life is over.
I think every time we've gone, not sorry to interrupt you, but
No, you're good.
I think every time we've gone into a school, which is not nearly as much as you guys have, but that's one of the things that we always try to hit on is that, luxury is a good way to put it. We had the opportunity to experiment with drugs when we were kids. Yeah. If somebody gave you a pill and told you it was this or it was this, it was because nobody was making fake pills that were just full of fentanyl at the time.
Right.
Yeah. And John, I like what you said about how you guys are not a scared straight program because if there's one thing we found is that scaring kids does not work. They don't get scared. They think they're invincible. That's not going to happen to me. That's kind of how we saw the DARE program fail. Is that's what it was. Is this police officer came into the school and he told you if you smoke weed or you drink, you're going to end up a homeless drug addict. You're going to go to jail. You're going to die. And then we start smoking weed, and it's been a few months and nobody's gotten hurt. Nobody's gotten arrested.
Right.
So now we think that they're lying to us. It didn't work. So that is one of the other things that we always say too is, we're not even here to tell you not to do drugs or drink because we're not dumb. We know that a lot of you are going to, but this is what happened to us because we chose to make those, those are the decisions that we made. So a lot of it does come back to exactly what you were saying, as this is more about, wise decision making. And one of the things that I always tell them is it's a lot easier to do the wrong thing than it is to do the right thing. It takes a lot less effort, a lot less energy, a lot less time to just go off and do whatever you want to do, as opposed to putting in that time and effort and energy to make the right decisions.
Yeah. And you guys are doing a lot of prevention work, which is great. You want to get to them before they get started. But I think the scary thing now is that the stakes are so much higher. The stakes have always been high, right? Because young people can get addicted to drugs and alcohol and destroy their life slowly, right? This whole, we all started using, Cody alluded to it, where you were having a good time, then you wake up one day and all your accounts are overdrafted and you're dodging the police because you got a warrant, right? And you're like, how the heck did I get here? But anymore, like almost kind of you're lucky if you get addicted and you don't die the first time you do it, right? The stakes are, you're playing all or nothing right now, right? When kids are out here using these drugs, and that's really what you guys are trying to focus on with them, right?
Correct. We truly try to convey that like you're playing roulette with your life every single time. Again, when we were using, we didn't have to worry about that as much. As Tommy said, with everything being stamped, we've heard cases of people overdosing from fentanyl being laced in a blunt. We've heard it being laced in Xanax, pain medications. They're literally putting it in anything and everything. And it's the scary piece is it's roulette with your life every single time.
Yeah. And so, I think what everybody's always trying to figure out is, what is the, how do you get kids to be at that point in their life where they're vulnerable? Because we see, right, like, and I see it too, unfortunately, when I go to a lot of funerals with the collage of pictures where, there's a clear distinction in the photos from when you can see when they're a kid and then they become a young adult. And you can just tell the nature of the photos changes, the clothes change, the looks change. And I feel like that's where we lose a lot of kids, right? Is in that shift from being the kid who's still willing to go out and have a campfire with grandpa and hang out with dad and all that stuff. And now all of a sudden that's not cool. And that's when they begin to kind of drift away and start to experiment with the drugs and alcohol. So, how do you guys try to get to them? And what's your guys' thoughts on that kind of that shift where we have to really get them before they even get started?
I think one of the things that we do really well is we're transparent. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not like coming in, I've learned this with speaking. Cody's the same way. I'm not coming in saying, Nate, Tommy, you guys need to do this, right? Because I say so. It's like, I think when we were at Eastbrook, I was crying 3 minutes into talking.
Yeah.
I'm looking out, and that's close to home, but you see, family members and kids, whose parents are struggling. And when they see that, I think it opens them up to at least have the conversation. Like, I'm not coming at you trying to tell you what to do, and I'm not coming at you, like, I'm just telling you that your life has value, whatever that looks like, and you have a gift, and you had dreams, like whether you want to make music or be a veterinarian or paint pictures, whatever it is, like, think about those things and like getting to that place. Because right now, when we're young, we have these blinders on, like, this day is so important.
Yeah.
These people bullying me, the way I look, the shoes, all of that, the shoes I'm wearing is all so important to you right now. It means nothing. Some of you are supposed to raise beautiful families that you don't even know those kids yet. Mm-hmm. Like, this right here means very little, in the grand scheme of what your life's going to be. And like I said, with being transparent, and that's in all of the recovery world. And when I've worked in it, like, if I come in and I'm just trying to tell you, like, I have a story, and when I've worked with the courts before, there's people you can't get through to. And then you go out and you talk to them. They're like, well, I'm just struggling with my girl's mom. Well, guess what? I can tell my story about my daughters, and instantly a tough dude will be like, oh, so you've been through that too. The toughest dudes. So that's what I think we do really well. And then we talk to them after. And we don't ever have to worry about like losing sight of the value and the importance of what we're doing, because they're coming up to us. This is high school kids, middle school kids. At the last, one of the schools in Huntington, we asked them to raise their hands if they thought they had a purpose, and it was about 18 hands. Mm-hmm. Then we said, raise your hands if you, and this is a class of 500, raise your hands if you know somebody that's overdosed 80% of the class.
Absolutely.
So like they're just the impact that and they're going through a lot. They're really waiting for somebody to come in and be like, hey, I've been there. There's a way out. You don't have to live like this. They're almost waiting for it. Yeah. And I think that's where so many parents are at a disadvantage. Like, we got hit with the pandemic and all of these things, and these parents they don't know what to say or do. Like, yeah, you can say drugs are bad, but like, how do I get through to my kids that literally, like, you've seen it take on the tip of a pencil is enough fentanyl for you to die. That means you're playing with your life on a couple grains of sand, basically. That's the size of it. And smoking weed, you can die, and all of that stuff. But coming from a place of like, we don't want to see that. Like, we love you. Yep. We want to see you get your purpose. I think the best thing, and you're not going to get through to everybody, but every walk that we do, whether it's adults, kids, family members, is just to be transparent,
Yeah. I think kids are hungry for, especially this generation, and our generation too, I don't think we realized it, but they're hungry for purpose, for community, for leadership, right? Like, I think the world is so, you can be whatever you want to be, and like there's all these options, and there's really no truth, right? I think kids are hungry for truth, and so you just give them like, hey, there's no such thing as the truth, and they're kind of like, well, that's even more scarier than this being the truth, right? Like, that freaks people out. It freaks me out, right? But I can see it with the kids. Like, it's like you said, they want somebody to be real with them, and they want somebody to show them something that, I think everything right now in our culture is so superficial that they're not getting, like, for me, I know in my walk as a kid, and, you guys tell me what you think about this, I started using drugs partly because the way I felt about myself, I felt disconnected, but I felt disconnected from the world in the sense that I thought that all the bad things and the good things together were going to keep happening no matter what I did. I felt like I was meaningless in my existence. I didn't realize that I was the one someday who was going to be the adult. And you would say, well, duh, of course you're going to be. But when you tell a kid, you got to go to class, and you're like, why? Because in 4 years you want to graduate. You're like, dude, that's 4 years. That's 4 years from now. That kid's 14. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's like a third of their life that they've already, that's a huge thing. They can't even comprehend that. So I didn't even think about like what I do matters, because it didn't seem like it mattered. And society really didn't tell me that it mattered, because it's like, if it feels good, do it, right? So I think it's great. And you guys, what do you think about that? About kids are hungry for purpose?
So to touch on, yes, I could not agree more. Here's where we are today. Today's youth are living in a world that none of the four of us, or maybe nobody in this building over the age of 25, has ever experienced. And what I mean by that is, like you said, when you started to use, you kind of felt lost. You didn't feel like you had a purpose. Imagine the four of us sitting back 25 years ago, feeling like that. To put ourselves in today's youth, put yourself in a 15-year-old shoes today, and everything in this world is judged by clicks and likes and your social media presence. And in 2020, they shut the entire world down. And then all of a sudden, everyone's isolated. Mm-hmm. And they want us to, everything is over Zoom or over a telephone conference or do all these things. And then all of a sudden, the doors open back up. And now you're supposed to put your phone up and you need to be present again. And so today's kids, anywhere from 7th grade to 10th grade right now, or 9th grade to 12th grade, they're so far behind socially because of that lapse in their life, that everything was done online, and everything literally became about anything I post, or no matter what we do, it's hitting the internet. You can't even have a conversation with somebody today without somebody else videoing it. And all of a sudden you're getting posted. And what I try to explain to the kids is like, I don't know what you're going through. I don't know how you got to where you are right now, but I can tell you what helped me. And back to the authenticity of it and the realism of it, the kids really appreciate just someone coming in and just being vulnerable. A lot of these kids have never had anyone look at them and just be real. Mm-hmm. If it's a parent or a loved one, we're fluffing everything and we're trying to make everything sound perfect. And kids aren't dumb. At the end of the day, they know what's going on. And if they don't know exactly what it is, they know something's going on. And when we come in and we just literally tell them just our life. Like when I start a conversation, I'm like, listen, I don't have a degree. I've never read any books. What I'm just going to give you is my life and where my choices led me. And I just feel like the kids just relate to that. But again, it's a world we're living in that none of us have ever experienced. And the mental health aspect that maybe was there when we were kids, I think is so much more prevalent today. I think kids are dealing with so much more mental health awareness. And maybe when we were kids in the 90s that it wasn't talked about as much. But so many kids we talked to, like we were in southern Indiana or northern Kentucky, and this girl comes up to me afterwards and she's like, hey, I'm a little bit suicidal. And I'm like, okay, like why? Well, 2 weeks ago, my dad shot my mom in the face, and now she's no longer here, and my dad's in prison for the rest of my life. And the court systems are going to place me somewhere. And it's like, that's real life to her. That is, it's just so hard to wrap our minds around it. But I think anxiety and depression and mental illness is really pushing to the forefront of a lot of the youth drug addiction.
Yeah. And I mean, I think one of the reasons that's become so prevalent is the isolation. I think that community fixes a lot of things, and that's what you're talking about. They're socially, set back. Yep. So then you don't have the traditional layers of the community that you would have. I think kids just feel disconnected, not only from their peers, but from their parents and from their teachers and everybody else. And I think that's when you see things like depression and anxiety come out,
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what Cody was saying about social media also, that plays a huge part in that how they're feeling disconnected as well. That's a big part of the reason that they are feeling disconnected, is because even when they are in a circle of people, they're sitting there staring at their phone. You know, they're on TikTok and Twitter and whatever, X, you know, whatever it's called now.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that we talk about also when we go into schools with Remedy Live.
Yep.
And we do the Get Schooled tour. Again, that plays a huge role in the mental health crisis that we are facing, because when they're scrolling on TikTok and they're getting all those likes, it's, you know, that's releasing dopamine in their brain. So then when they stop, their brain, you know, we've talked about that a million times. You can dive into it a little bit more if you want to, but that's definitely playing a huge part.
Well, I mean, the deck is stacked against these kids in the sense that everything in the United States specifically is designed to cause dopamine spikes in your brain, right? Like, we live in a consumer society. Like, every time you turn on the TV, you know, if you go get a Big Mac, you're going to be happy. You know, if you buy a Toyota, your family's going to love you, right? Like, you know, if you do this and that, everything's going to be great. And same thing, you know, like Tommy said, with TikTok and social media, the algorithms are set up to the point where it creates dopamine spikes. So that's what kids are leaning towards, right? So then it's an easy transition to a vape. Like, hey, when I'm feeling anxious or when I'm having a bad day or tired, needing to pick me up, I'm going to hit my vape. I'm going to drink my Red Bull or my Mountain Dew, and then I'm going to go eat a pack of Skittles. And then they crash 3 hours later while they're in class. They can't focus, and they don't want to, you know, then they become even more antisocial because they feel like crap, you know, and then it's not such a big transition then when you're like, hey, try this pill. And they're like, man, when I take that pill, I feel good. I don't have that crash from Mountain Dew or from the Skittles, and my high is way better, you know, and then it continues on down the road, you know?
Yeah.
So true.
Everything's set up. When you walk into the gas station, what's up front?
Right.
Lottery tickets, tobacco, the vape glasses, the hookahs, all of that stuff's up front.
It is.
So it's never ending temptation. When you had mentioned the purpose thing, though, I think that we get messages and the kids will say stuff like, I decided to quit using today, because that's what we're up against. Is like a lot of times they're like, well, can you soften it for the middle schools? We can, but my question is, when are they going to hear it? Because what they're facing right now,
it's not doing them any favors.
It's already there.
No, and they handle it well, and they interact with us well
because it's real.
Yeah,
well, just like you guys were saying, that's what they're searching for. Is they want somebody to come in and be honest with them.
Yeah, and just, you know, and tell them, because they're experiencing it. Nothing I can say can take away their experience of losing a loved one to prison, death, whatever it is. And the more we talk at these schools will do these assemblies. And the last couple, the line when we were in Huntington, we had to split up because they were wanting to talk. And it was like, my older brother overdosed, my best friend overdosed. And this is what they're dealing with already in school. And I think we'll get the messages sometimes that I decided to get sober. You made me realize how dangerous this is. But we're starting to get messages where the kids are like, I believe I have a purpose. And that right there, like when you're reading them, I do most of the social media reading and I'll screenshot and send to him. But you're sitting on the porch and you're in tears because you're like, that's that one saying, I believe I have a purpose here now, when they didn't think that before, is such a game changer to generations. And who knows that community or any place that they might go.
Cycle breaker.
Yep. And it's the most, and that's what we've tried so hard with these programs in the past, the war against drugs. Like, none of this stuff has worked. No. Because it's like, I need Tommy to believe that he has a purpose. And once he understands he has a purpose, he's going to be a lot more protective 100%. Of his life and his stuff and his family and the people that he cares about.
Yeah, well, we're waging a war on a symptom, not the actual problem, right? The problem is they don't have a purpose. And you hit the nail on the head. And I think you said this the other day when we were at lunch that, you know, somebody finding their purpose is going to be much more protective. They're going to be much more protective of that than if they hear about the negative side effects, right? Because like you can talk yourself out of having negative side effects, right? You're like, well, we all do it all the time, right? It's our brain trying to protect us from harm. But when you have a purpose and it's something you do every day and it leads to fulfillment, which I think is what a lot of people are looking for, you know, but they mistake those dopamine spikes with drugs and alcohol and everything else as fulfillment. But then when it wears off, you're more empty than you were before. But if you find purpose, it's not the case, right? You go home feeling good, and there's no crash from living out your purpose, right?
And well, even when you crash and you're chasing your goals, like we all everybody here has dreams. You know, when I'm tracing, I don't care
Right.
if it's a bad day, because this is, you know, I mean, I'm headed someplace. And going in and telling them all the bad stuff, like, oh, this is going to make you feel bad. That may work for a while, but what one day they're going to wake up and be like, I feel bad anyway.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
That was me.
what do I have to lose? My friend said this can give me energy, or this can knock me out, and I feel bad anyway. So like me telling you how bad it is with no other ingredients in it is just, eventually you're going to be like, I feel bad, I might as well have a drink. I feel bad, I might as well experience this stuff because I already feel like crap.
Well, and that's another thing is, so, you know, I'm sure you get to talk about finding your purpose, which is a great step, but then protecting your purpose by changing who you hang out with and the messages you take in. You know, I always tell people I had a great family, and my family always told me that my purpose was, you know, to serve God and help other people. And I heard all that. But when I would go in my room and close the door for the other 4 hours of the night, I was turning on my rap music, listening to 50 Cent and Lil Wayne, right? Watching gangster movies and stuff like that. So I wasn't protecting my purpose. You become what you consume, whether it's food, whether it's media, whether it's content online, it doesn't matter. So I'm sure you guys harp on that too, protecting your purpose, you know, not hanging out with those kids that are like, hey, we'll just take this, you'll feel better, but people that their mission aligns with yours.
I don't think you could be more spot on there. When I first got sober and first came back, I had no idea. You know, in recovery, you always hear people, places, things. I think it's common. I've heard it forever. I didn't understand what that meant.
No one explains it though. They just keep saying it, and you're like, okay, I got it. People, places, things, whatever.
To me, it was, I'm going to have to change where I live, the state I'm in. I'm going to have to go everywhere. And realization hit that it doesn't really matter where I'm at in this country or this world. If I choose to use, or if I choose to go drink, I'm going to be able to do that wherever.
Take yourself with you.
Yeah. That's good. You take yourself with you. What I tell the kids, if you show me your friends, I can show you your future. And the kids would just look at me like, well, so-and-so. And I don't think they fully grasp the concept of positivity breeds positivity and negativity breeds negativity. I'm working with a 21-year-old right now that has just been in and out and just struggling. And every time he comes back from a rehab or jail, he goes right back to his parents' house and hangs out right back with the same kids.
Yep.
And we had a conversation last night. I was on the phone with him for 2 hours, and I'm like, A, your mom's is your trigger, first and foremost. Yep. You have to get out of there. But B, how many times are you going to touch that stove that's on and burn yourself before you realize to not touch it?
Yep.
And I think that's what we deal with so often is we go to where we're comfortable. Nobody likes change. Change is hard. And I think, unfortunately, the world we live in today, where everything is so soft and everything around us is so molded to whatever agenda is being pushed at the time, that these kids, they grew up in a comfort zone. You can't even, as parents, we can't, there's certain things that we're not supposed to say to our kids anymore. You know, growing up, it was nothing to catch a backhand. And I'm not saying that's what kids need by any means, but that's not even a part of society anymore.
Yeah.
And these kids have just been molded just so comfortable that when they get with those bad friend groups and when they get around those people that they don't need to be around, that's all they know.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of people too don't, and I know for myself, people always like hang out, you know, my dad used to say you hang out with the least common denominator. Like you always find the people that are the ones like doing drugs or that are on parole or probation. You hang out with them and you do what they do. But what he didn't understand was like, even if you put me around people that were doing something different, I never felt worthy. I always felt like I was a piece of garbage. And that was part of the reason I got high in the first place, right? Like when I was, when I got high, I felt like a little bit like nicer piece of garbage, still garbage, but a little nicer piece, right? Like something somebody could dig out of a dumpster or reuse perhaps, right? Yeah. But, I still felt bad. So like when I would go around people that were doing something, I felt like I didn't belong. But I think a lot of people, it's about realizing that you do belong there and that you can step up and you can be that person. And you touched on too, a lot of people are soft now. We talk a lot about feelings. I heard somebody say the other day, like we're always worried about offending people. But if you get offended, what happens? Literally nothing other than you're offended, right? Yeah. And I think that is, and I always tell people that too, because there's a lot of people in the recovery community that focus on labels and they're like, we need to say things a certain way. And I'm like, dude, if somebody calling you an addict or a junkie is going to derail you, you're going to have a tough life and you're probably never going to stay sober. So you got to let those things bounce right off you. You know, whatever happened to like sticks and stones break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Yeah.
That's true. And I think that's a lot to do with perseverance is what we're talking about. So if you surround yourself with people that are also big on perseverance and willing to walk through hard things, and, you know, people are going to tell you that you're a piece of crap even when you get your life together for a long time before you actually show them. And you know what I always tell people, they have the right to, because people treat you how you train them. Now, I understand it's a little bit different. Like, you know, you grew up in an abusive house, you didn't deserve that. But if people won't let you come to their house or they hide your purse when you come over, it's probably because you stole from them or you stole from somebody they know. Yeah. But if you hang around those people that are doing better things, then your reputation starts to improve. You start to believe and you start to do the things that they're doing.
One time I got into a heated discussion because I had said I had been clean for a certain amount of time. And I had some people that I was working with, not even recovered, like, you can't say that. But I can.
Yeah.
Because, like, I did it. And not only that, my people that come from the same place as me, they call it clean too. Right. It's not a reference to whatever you're thinking, but a lot of times we have people who have, and there's, you know, it takes all of these things to have a healthy, you know, community of recovery. But if you haven't lived it, don't tell me what to call it. Right. You know what I mean? And that, because we celebrate, so we can't celebrate when somebody says I've been clean because it's not sober. In my world, sober is usually alcohol. Like, that's what we always, sober, I'm not, you know, I mean, yeah, I'm off alcohol, but like, I'm clean. And that's one of the things with like some of the stuff, and I'm all for like the reduction, you know, the stigma reduction and everything like that. But we do get a touch, and people get offended, and it's like, it's not even, you haven't, you're not in recovery trying to tell me how to talk to, or how us that are in recovery to talk. And the other thing about this whole, with social media and all of these things, I used to be the same way. It was like with these younger kids, it's this ride or die, these are my people mentality. And you try to tell them, I promise you, as soon as you get locked up, they're going to be trying to talk to your girl. You'll have zero money. Yeah, they'll be telling on you, but they're not going to put money on your books. You know what I mean? And then you'll get out there and be like, oh yeah, I posted free my homie, but you did, but you tried to holler at his girl, you know.
That's what did it.
Cody tells this story about when he overdosed and they threw him in the shower, and he was like, they saved my life, but then they left. You get what I'm saying? So you can look at it and be like, that's a perspective thing. Cody can be like, oh, I have the best friends ever. They saved my life, but they left you there. Gone. And we've seen it. We've gotten calls while we were in the car together that a friend overdosed and died, and they did not take him to the hospital while he was overdosing. They threw him in his mom's front yard. And that's happened over and over again. And it's like the people around you, you can say whatever you want about like being ride or die. Like, there is no honor in that, and there is a level of loyalty that makes you stupid. Yeah, you know that, and that's the type of stuff we're talking about. If you're rolling around with people, and we have relationships now with our friends, like, I know that I can get a hold of Cody anytime I need anything or I need to talk or anything like that. But if you're living in that world and like, yeah, me and my boys, and they're like, you put so much on that, like, check your circle, because that's, you become one with who you run with, and they're the same ones that will. Like, literally, my friends thought they were rolling with people that had their back, and they'll throw you in your mom's yard. And that's a sad freaking truth. They'll leave you. Like, the hospital, we have all these laws now to where you can call and get people Narcan, you know what I mean? Like, and you can stay there. Yeah. And then you're still not doing it. Right. Because your friend's life is not worth more than you getting a probation violation.
Well, or it comes between you and your dope, which is, I mean, my dope became my higher power. It didn't matter what was going on. I had to get high so I could think.
Yep. And you can die.
Right.
You can lay there and die. Yep. Because I'm not tossing my stuff.
Well, I always told people that, like, the people you get high with, they will step over your dead body and they'll check your wallet as they do. You know what I mean? As they're on the way out the door, so they can get more dope. Like, they'll be sad for a minute, you know, but they're not gonna get clean because of it and dedicate their life to you. You know what I mean? Like, they don't care. And it's not because they're bad people. It's because they're screwed up too, right? Like, most people.
It's all issues. I'm not bad mouthing this group at all. I think it's just, that's the world we live in. Right. That's my if I'm using with you, my expectation is,
if you're gonna be gone.
You're gonna clean my wallet out. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're not gonna be checking on my family. Like, I understand. Like, the agreement that we have is we're getting high together is you'll rob me. Even if I nod out and I'm not dead, I'm probably going to get my stuff taken.
But that realization that the four of us all share on the outside, that has to sound like the craziest thing.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
It
like,
is.
like even to somebody like that has a degree in this, right? And like they're a drug treatment therapist, but they've never been through it, but they've took every class and read every book and watched every show imaginable. I try to put myself in those shoes, and there's no way me personally could grasp the concept of that, right?
Right.
But that is 100% the reality of the world that we live in when we're choosing to do that. All four of us at one point were fully aware that whoever we were getting high with, and if it was for me, it was 1 to 2 guys that I rode with and got high with every single day, right?
Yep.
I fully accepted the fact that if I overdosed, everything I had was theirs, and they owed me nothing, right?
Right.
Well, and they probably thought the same thing.
Sure.
If they're the ones that overdose,
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, they
Sure.
probably did the same thing.
Absolutely.
But to get somebody that's never been there to grasp that is a challenge.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a real challenge.
And they probably never will. And that's okay. You know, I mean, I never expect anyone to understand they haven't been there.
There's a lot of stuff I don't understand.
Right, me too.
You know, about worlds I didn't live in, you know what I mean? And there's just way things operate. When you get into a new level of life, sometimes you got to learn how to, you know, where to put your silverware, like all these different things that make no sense to you, but you do it because that's where you're at.
Right.
You know?
But I think we all understand it now, right? But if we
Yeah.
had 2 people in here that were actively using, I think they would argue the fact that that's not how it is between them, right?
Oh, definitely.
yeah.
Even
for sure.
the people in the mix right now, and that's who I was speaking on. Like,
Right.
you cannot, like, from us now outside looking in, we could not get them to understand that.
No.
I don't think they would grasp it, right? They would fight it tooth and nail.
Well,
but it's the reality.
People even say, like, when I'm like, dude, there's fentanyl in your perk 30s, they're not real. They're like, oh, my dealer wouldn't do that to me. I'm like, bro, your dealer doesn't care about you, bro.
You just bought Christmas presents for your dealer's son.
Yeah.
He does not care. I mean,
Yep.
I don't know.
Well, I think we're going to have you guys on for another episode because I think we could keep talking about this stuff for another few hours, I'm sure.
We absolutely could.
But before we close, you have anything else that you want to share?
No, I don't know, man.
CodyandJohn.com.
So that's what I was going to ask. If somebody wants to follow you on social media, if they want to reach out to you guys.
On our Speak.
On our social medias, it's Cody and John Speak. Our website is CodyandJohn.com. And we have videos and stuff on. It's not just the students, the principals, administrators, the feedback has been phenomenal. So if you, and just Cody Knuckles or John Humphries on our social medias, give us a follow and you can see the stuff we're doing and message us on there. But our website's fully up and going. So I guess you can say it's kind of legit now.
Yeah. And
You got the blue check mark now?
No, we never got the blue
I think you
check
have to
mark.
pay
It's
for
coming.
that.
Not that legit, but it's
I
legit.
think you have to pay for that because I see people have a
do.
blue check mark. I'm like, I don't even know who this is.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they bought that thing.
You could for a while.
My neighbor has a blue check mark.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just even worse.
Congratulations on the
Yeah.
blue check
I
mark.
don't think anyone cares whether you have blue check mark or not. But no, I mean, but yeah, you guys are doing great work. We really appreciate it. I mean, I firmly believe, and I think Tommy does too, that prevention is probably big part of the way out of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? I mean, yeah.
And it's
gotta be
tough
a
too.
focus.
So I'm glad that there's
It's
other
real
people
tough.
that, we actually trust and want to work with that are out there working on that. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. I do think we'll have you back on sometime
Absolutely.
soon. So,
Thanks for having
Thanks for
us.
having
We
us,
appreciate
guys.
it.
all right. And that's it.